let's start with intuition. So executives don't really need to code, but you need to understand how AI creates value. It starts with seeing the shift from automation to augmentation. Data-driven decision making will also require decision-driven data gathering. Once you grasp that, every conversation about AI becomes strategic, not technical. So as we speak now, AI is already capable of a vast array of capabilities. You can create media with it, you can create code with it, you can visualize data, you can automate workflows, you can retrieve information, you can analyze data. But I think at the core, AI is really just one thing. You want to convert data into outcomes, or want to convert data into action. And in the old days of data science and analytics, this was achieved using a lot of human intervention. Used sophisticated tools, used code. And the point was to get raw data and transform it into a form that another set of humans will make a decision on. And that's when the action happens. All of that still applies today. But more and more, we are seeing kind of the bottom part of this diagram, which we used to call prescriptive analytics, where the process is more straight through. Because the models are smart enough and the processes are defined enough, you can literally just get data through a process and activity happens at the end. So this is the subtle difference between using Waze, for example, where you get data and Waze tells you where to go, but you're still ultimately in control of your vehicle, to a self-driving car where the vehicle already literally drives itself. Another set of terminologies that are often conflated are RPA, machine learning, Gen AI, and agentic AI. And although they operate along similar premises, which is using data to drive action, the way they do it is subtly different. In RPA, it's all about repeatable steps. So you have a workflow, you have a repeatable process. You might introduce data at a certain point to, in a way, guide thresholds. Much like a washing machine will be guided by a timer, or a microwave will be guided by, let's say, a temperature. That's RPA. In traditional machine learning, you have data first, and then you get a model to understand the patterns behind that data. So there's a lot of uh, people who still think of AI in this manner. So if we gather data, the model learns from it, and you can do a lot of interesting analysis, prediction, classification, and forecasting. And this is still very relevant today. Now, when Gen AI came out, this dynamic was affected radically. There was a less need to train the model because GPT means pre-trained transformer. So the models were already trained, but the emphasis now shifts to the prompt. This is the user impetus or the user impulse that then guides the model to produce outputs. And then soon after, via a process called RAG, or retrieval augmented generation, people also found that it was possible to augment the prompt with additional data, which also became an impulse. But the whole point here is you have a general purpose trained model that can accept any prompt and produce a lot of various types of output from media to code. And then we went to agentic. So agentic is currently where we are now, which is essentially enhancing the use of Gen AI. So if you have all of these general purpose models, you can string them together in a process, give them a system prompt to guide future activity, and then essentially giving the model permission to prompt itself, to think for itself. And then you add to that a process whereby the models retain some memory of past activity. And you now have this self closed loop where an AI model can not just think for itself, but also act for itself without human intervention. But if you look at all of these, design patterns, and they're all equally viable right now, the point is still the same. You want to get data, run it through a process, and then the objective is still something that humans will decide on, or something humans will determine. Now, if we step back from that, we start to think about use cases, and this is one of the most often, uh, most common question I get. Like, what are the use cases, doc? And it might surprise people that as early as 2023, six design patterns have already emerged on how AI should be used or can be used. And the question is really just how these six apply to you as a business. The first is the concept of having a technical assistant. If you're able to train AI with enough information, with enough processes to replicate your internal procedures, your internal thought, your internal mental models, then it can become an assistant already, can become a troubleshooter. Content obviously is a big component, using AI for media, for marketing. But content can also be internal content like emails, memos. And if you think about it, every business process is simply triggered by a piece of content. You send a message or you send an email to someone to trigger a process. So imagine if you can put AI into that kind of workflow, you can let AI run a process already. As opposed to technical assistance, a personal support AI is more open-ended. So this is appropriate where you need something to assist with a wide array of outcomes, but there's no fixed best outcome. Anything from coaching to interviews to speculation to planning to design thinking. These are ways where AI can help an otherwise open-ended process. And in a way, it flies in the face of, I think, traditional assumptions that AI cannot help with anything creative. I think AI can extend creativity as long as you're able to feed it with enough input. Learning obviously is a big contentious point right now. Schools are complaining about AI because AI is disrupting traditional curriculum. But think about how powerful a curriculum could be if it's enhanced by AI instead. We already spoke about creativity. And I think the point here is not just thinking of creativity in terms of art or literature. So those are still also contentious areas where AI is disruptive. But in terms of business strategy, you know, executives are often pressed for time to be thinking about many options and think about how AI can help you with just sifting through business outcomes and business options. And finally, using AI for research, analysis, and decision making. This actually harkens back to kind of the older use of data science and analytics. But AI isn't just capable of crunching the numbers now, it's actually able to interpret the numbers as well. And that can be groundbreaking.